What's up, nerds? Welcome back. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm still doing a comic book review, but I'm not doing something more current. I'm actually going back in time. And since Frank Miller has been in the news lately, I decided why not do a book that Frank Miller wrote, right? So today I am talking about Spawn Batman #1 from Frank Miller with art by the master Todd McFarlane. All right, so like I said, if you haven't been paying attention to what's happening in the news, Frank Miller has been in the news recently because he was supposed to appear at a convention, but then there was another creator who was supposed to be there who I've never heard of, and I probably will never hear of again until they are in another controversy. But apparently, they decided to kick up some static about Frank Miller being there, saying that he was like Islamophobic or whatever. No evidence was given; the accusation was just made, and that was enough to kick up, enough of a storm online that they canceled make Frank Miller showing up, and then the person who caused the problem also said, "Oh yeah, I'm not going either." So it was all for naught. I hope that convention learned its lesson. But anyway, we're not going to get too much into that because we're actually going to get into something Frank actually wrote. Now, granted, this is not his best writing of all time. It's not as bad as Holy Terror, which is the book everybody is talking about right now. It's not as bad as that. This is before Frank went all the way off the deep end, but this is after he wrote The Dark Knight Returns. And we know that because in here, there's literally on the opening credits page or whatever the hell, where it shows us that Frank is the writer and Todd is the artist, it also gives us this right here in green. And it says Spawn vs. Batman is a companion piece to DC Comics' The Dark Knight Returns. It does not represent current DC continuity. So, I mean, if you want to look at it in any kind of way, basically, the Batman that Frank Miller wrote, I guess it's canon that in that universe, since we're all about alternate universes now, in that alternate universe, Batman has actually canonically actually met Spawn and they exist in the same place or whatever. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We're not getting old man Batman. We're not getting year one Batman either. We're kind of getting, when he's into it a little bit. But we do start in Gotham, of course. And so we start out with Frank kind of just doing what he normally does, where he's just kind of giving these very authorial kind of descriptions of the city. It's like a cold night, a dark night, an unforgiving wind, a merciless city, Gotham. At the waterfront, Gotham's distant roar, the lapping of briny waves against rotted wooden pilings, startled curses, muffled gunshots, horrid pounding, shrieks of pain, dull moans, near silence. Inside a warehouse, salty smells of blood and sweat, a silent shadow of a man, a cold night, a dark night. Batman. And so that's where we get this like opening intro to we see Batman just looking badass. And this is one thing about like the way that Todd draws Batman. He almost always shows like his whole face in shadow. He doesn't even show like the part where it's like skin. Very often he doesn't even make that delineation. It's like his whole face is just always cloaked in shadow. So you only see like the eye holes and then like his mouth or his teeth or whatever. So anyway, it's saying like, musty air sucked into lungs filled with fire, blood surging from a heart to shoulder and streaming hotly down his arm. Not a moment spent acknowledging the pain, not a movement wasted. Batman, protector, avenger, detective, champion. So apparently he just got out of a fight with a whole bunch of guys. And this is one thing. You have a few different kinds of Batman. For me, growing up, I read like a lot of trades of like Danny O'Neill's Batman, and then I read like just kind of like random stuff from the 90s, so you had, like Graham Nolan and stuff in there. But I mean, this one, whenever you're reading specifically Frank's Batman, it's like I always kind of have to remind myself that Frank's Batman is a little bit more of like a brawler, like a street type of guy, and that he does a lot of shit talking. You know what I mean? Like he's always called like right here where he calls them punks, and he's like, "You're lucky I went so easy on you." So he's always doing shit like that. Like he's always calling people names and like basically pumping himself up like I'm much better than you and I can prove it too, like that type of thing. But I get where Frank is coming from, considering that he did live in New York for like, well, does he still live in New York? No, he doesn't live in New York anymore, right? Anyway, but like he lived there for a long time, so I kind of get where he kind of has that mentality of like this type of like tough guy who's like not only is he tough and he's going to tell you you're weaker than him, but he can actually back it up too. So he's like one of those type of like old school guys, like I'll tell you that I'm better than you and I'll prove it to you if you want. So anyway, he's walking away, and it's saying, like, tonight's foes are left behind him, broken things. But the true horror lies ahead. So anyway, he goes over to see, like, what they had, and apparently they were, like, smuggling weapons and shit. So they had, like, regular stuff, like guns and shit. But then it also says that it says guns, grenades, rocket launchers, and strange high-tech devices that hint at the smaller horrors that would have followed the nuclear nightmare. And so he's specifically picking up a pair of battle gloves, humming with the promise of power. And then all of a sudden he gets attacked by these like robots or whatever the hell. So pretty like this is like Todd McFarlane drawing. So I mean the action scenes in here and everything are done very nicely. Like the way that he interprets Frank's script and everything, done very well. But anyway, it's saying like the robot pauses, stupid as it is lethal, thinking Batman dead. Not human. No chance against this thing. No chance unless move slowly, stay conscious, ignore the pain, stay conscious. The gloves, humming with the promise of power. No time to study them, just put them on and pray the Soviet slave who made them knew what he was doing. So, he like puts on the gloves or whatever, and it says he can immediately like feel the energy like surging through him and everything, like that he has now like superhuman strength and shit. So he immediately, it says, as the robot hunches, taking aim, building a charge that could blast Batman to dust. No hesitation. Since year one, Batman has known when there is no defense, attack. So that's exactly what he does. He attacks the damn thing. And then when he punches it, I guess he punches it in what would, I guess, be the face or whatever. He notices that when he breaks the glass, there's obviously like a human eye looking out at him. So he's a little bit disturbed by that. And it says, revealing something warm and soft and frightened inside. At least part of this thing is human. So the person, I guess, inside starts immediately saying, like, where am I? What's going on and shit. And so he like kicks it and he's trying to like bust it out because he knows, okay, so there is a person in there, but I don't know how much of this is the person and how much is the robot. So he's trying to like figure it out and shit. But it says it's like wrestling a jackhammer. Get inside, get past it to him. So he notices that the guy is speaking English, not Russian. English with an American accent, a Brooklyn accent. So it says, what is going on here? And now it shudders and stops. Batman has won, but the air goes hot and a strident signal brings a ringing to Batman's ears. So all of a sudden he knows that it's about to self-destruct. So he just grabs the head or whatever and like pulls it out, which was pretty lucky because it is just a head, almost kind of like from Futurama, like the head's in the jar and shit. So it's just a head, and then like it's saying I can't feel anything and shit. But then it says the air trembles, the earth trembles, and the air turns to fire. And what was once a man is only a piece of evidence. So we go from there over to where we get like introduced. This is going to be the villain of the story or whatever, this woman, and we kind of get the introduction to her. It says, and it came as no surprise that Dr. Margaret Love, founder and president of Heal the World, was awarded the Lame Beer Prize for humanitarian achievement. Our work has only begun, said Dr. Love. I accept this honor. Not in my own name, but on behalf of the thousands of caring and sharing volunteers who have brought the rewards of self-actualization, empowerment, and attitude adjustment to the disenfranchised of our troubled planet. So, we go into the cave and shit, and like Batman's sitting at his computer trying to figure out what's going on. And of course, Alfred comes in and he's telling him like he has tea or whatever. And he says it's chamomile, the tea that is utterly renowned for relieving stress in vigilantes suffering from obsessive disorder. So he's like, yeah, not right now. Like, just patch on my shoulder and the blood's getting in my way. So he says, very good, sir, but you might consider removing your cowl so as to facilitate my efforts. After all, you've no need to conceal your identity here. So he just says, sometimes I'm more comfortable with the mask on. So he goes on, like, examining the evidence he has and shit. And then, of course, Alfred is trying to like patch him up and shit, but he goes on with his investigating or whatever, and he says, the answer's got to be in New York. And then Alfred says, they say chamomile is sure to prevent nightmares, even the self-inflicted variety. To which Batman says, I don't get nightmares, I give them. So he says, well, Alfred's like, no need for punchlines, sir. You're among friends. So he gives him the dead head, and he's like, put this on ice. These gloves go in the vault, the ones he got from the villains or whatever. He's like, be careful with them. So Alfred takes off to go do that, and then Batman takes off into the city. And see, shit like this is why I fell in love with like Batman comics and shit. When you get like him just on a rooftop and then you see the immensity of the city behind him, even if it's just one building that is like far outranking him in size, like you really get a sense of what type of place Gotham is. It is a gigantic city. But anyway, he goes on and says, but very soon a woman's scream splits the night, and Batman remembers a little boy who watched in horror and disbelief as a mugger's bullets tore through the flesh and bone of Thomas and Martha Wayne. As Heal the World's pilot program provides New York's homeless not just with food and shelter, but with hope for a better life through the wonders of attitude adjustment and social realignment, reports are flooding our desk from throughout Midtown of muggers stopped cold in their tracks, of innocent near victims rescued by a shadowy savior. Could it be that a certain caped crusader has hit the Big Apple, or has come to the Big Apple? So that's where we get that from the news and shit. And then Batman goes and starts basically trying to get information. And he starts with like the homeless of the city. So it says, among the dregs of humanity, Batman listens for any scant clue. Mostly he hears sob stories and outright nonsense. But now and then he hears legends of one of their own named Al, a bum possessed with magic powers. Nonsense, he thinks. So we go on from there to where all of a sudden it's kind of showing that we get this awesome like page where Todd drew Spawn in there. So looking nice, but it kind of gives us a little bit of a description of who Spawn is. He's a dead man brought to wretched life, a slave of hell who seeks redemption, and some of his friends are missing. So we go from there to where there are these two guys who are trying to like set this random homeless guy on fire. So one of them pours gasoline on him, and then his other friend is like egging him on the whole time, like, hurry, do it, do it, do it. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. So he lights the match and throws it at the like trail of gas he led to the guy. But then as you can see, as it's going towards him, all of a sudden it just like arcs around him, goes around, and comes back at them to burn them. And so one of them is yelling out like, hey, fire, can't do that. And it's like, the other one's like, coming after us, it's coming after us. So they run, and then they're like, it's weird, man, magic or something. But they crash into Spawn. And he's like, yes, magic. Magic brewed in the depths of hell. So he tells them like, which is where you two are going, unless you give me a damn good reason not to send you there. So the guy that he has in his hand or whatever is telling his friend like, quick, dust him, dust him. But doesn't work. He tries to shoot him, and he says, you're being stupid. But the dude tries to shoot him. He's like I said, being stupid. So he tells them, when you meet Satan, say hello for me. So he uses some of his magic power and burns them to death. And then it's saying, like, of course, this was rightfully deserved because they were trying to burn a guy to death. But it's saying, to Batman, who's literally just showing up to the scene, it looks like he just wantonly murdered two people for the hell of it. So Batman, of course, leaps in, and he has to like start fighting with Spawn. So again, another nice page in here of the two of them. And it says, there's one good thing about murderers. You don't feel bad about taking a cheap shot at them. Like getting good momentum from a 30-foot drop and driving your heel into the murderer's kidney. Shouldn't cause too much damage. 6 months in the hospital, and he'll be ready to face the judge. So immediately Spawn just kind of like knows who Batman is. He's like, yo, this is my turf, Batman. He does call him Batman. So he says, back off. But of course, Batman's not having it. He kind of like throws him into the wall, and then he tries to punch him in the face, which doesn't do a whole lot because it says it's like punching a brick wall, like kicking a slab of granite, yet still he hisses like a man. Al does. Like he breathes like a man. What is he made of? So he's trying to figure it out, but then we see he pulls out like some batarangs, throws that at him, and he's like, come on, just like stop it. He catches one of them, and he uses his chain to like knock the other two away. He says, knock it off, Batman. I'm not in the mood, and I don't have the time. So Batman, of course, comes and kicks him again. He's like, got time for this, punk? So, like I said, he's always just talking shit. So he kicks him into the wall and everything. And he says, like, he realizes that, he doesn't seem to respond to pain as much as, like, other people, but that he does still need to breathe. So he realizes that and he says, get some distance. There's a reason you carry your utility belt, you idiot, Batman tells himself, because he even talks shit to himself. So he tells himself to use it. And then he throws these, like, capsules that have nerve gas in it. So that's enough to kind of at least like disorient Spawn and shit. And it says it seems to slow him down. It seems to soften him up. So he keeps like punching at him, and then Batman says, "Had enough?" But he's like, "In your dreams." So we see this part where we don't actually see the fight scenes, but we see from the captions where it's saying like he's using like his demonic energy, and he feels like this is cheating. I'm using cheating to literally beat the shit out of Batman. So it says Batman realizes I'm overpowered. Batman realizes it's retreat or die, and if I'm dead, he tells himself. If I'm dead, he tells himself, I'm no use to anybody. So he kind of like I guess throws a smoke capsule or whatever and tries to like get away. And Spawn is telling him, "And don't you come back here. You got your turf and I got mine." And then he starts like coughing and shit. But Batman tells him, "I'll be back, all right, you little punk. Count your blessings. I let you off so easy." So again, even though he clearly lost the fight, he's gonna walk away talking shit. So again, like I said, just that type of tough guy that to most people he can back up his shit, but when he meets someone he can't back it up, he's still gonna talk tough because it's like, well, I could have gotten you if I just gotten in that one lucky hit or whatever. So he goes from there. He kind of like drags himself to a different part of an alley or whatever. And it says Batman gets 10 blocks before his knees give out. He spends the next few minutes teaching himself how to breathe without coughing. Then he goes to work on his right arm, fitting it back into its socket. Then he twists himself around until the bones of his spine are a bit less tangled. All this is very painful, which is good. It keeps his mind off the humiliation. The punk was holding back. So, anyway, we go from there to where it says that Spawn comes to this building is old and crumbling. The door looks like it would break if you leaned against it. But once you scrape off the fake rust, the lock is a brand new Pataki. State of the art security. For a mission? Back when he was a soldier, back when he was alive, Al Simmons could pick one of these beauties in 10 seconds flat. Now it takes him 12. So he breaks in there, and then it says, a junkie named Silvio led Spawn here. He seemed to know something. You can check in, said Silvio, but you can't check out. It's very Hotel California. But anyway, it says, whatever this place is, it's built for more than feeding people. Behind him, oiled servos were almost silent. So again, we get like one of these giant robot attacks, but this time it's Spawn's turn to like fight against one of them. So he starts doing that and then says, another precious little piece of hell released. So he uses his powers again and shit. And then it says, released, wasted. Better to use the weapon that's actually at hand. So he takes its like cannon or whatever that he got off the robot, and he starts using that. So if you don't know that much about Spawn, that's why he doesn't always use like his magic powers and shit, is because the more he uses, the more susceptible he comes to being under Hell's command. So that's basically why he has to sometimes resort to guns and shit, which isn't a problem. I got no problem seeing him use like big ass guns. So he uses that against the robot, and then another one of those like heads or whatever comes like plopping out. So this is where he discovers like, oh, okay, these things have like humans in them or whatever that are kind of like, I don't really know if they're driving them, but they are kind of just like piloting them. They're a battery, something like that. But anyway, the head is saying, like, I don't know where I am. And then he recognizes it and he says, Chuck, what the hell? Who did this to you? And then he's saying, I don't know who I am. So it says, the last moving piece of the robot staggers into a wall. Circuits hum to life. So that's where we see this video from, what's her name, Dr. Love or whatever, where she recorded this message and it says, you've worked so very hard all these months. I'm so very proud of you. You are ready now for the final stage of your rehabilitation. So that's where I guess they ended up getting transformed into robots. So she's saying, prepare to shed your poisoned bodies and become perfect servants of society, free from guilt and pain, free from choice. It says her voice is like music, hypnotizing. Then, like a thunderclap, a fragment of memory, the memory of Al Simmons, soldier, on some ghastly foreign battlefield. She was smiling. Men screamed and died, and she was smiling. So It's saying, and now here, her sick experiments continue. The hell power surges, begging for release. Spawn does not fight it. So apparently he remembers her from her past life, where she was, I guess, like, I don't know if she was like an actual military official or some sort of scientist or whatever. But anyway, she was experimenting on soldiers and shit. And then we go back over to Batman. It's like the punk was holding back. Humiliating. Don't dwell on it. Pat yourself up. You'll be ready when duty calls. And then it says, a strange sight, the bat signal over the skyline of Manhattan. A strange sight, but a welcome one. If Batman is still in pain, he does not know it. So he goes over to see who it is because it says that it's like a makeshift bat signal and shit. So he goes there and it's saying that he finds her so beautiful and her voice is just so arresting that if he were not what he is, he would call the feeling he has desire. But it says, but he is what he is. So she's telling him, like, a security camera spotted the thing that did this, Batman. It was all red cape and chains. It reduced my beautiful mission to rubble, and now I fear it will do worse. Tonight, a fundraiser aboard the Heal the World ship. It's rumored the president may attend. If anything should happen, oh, Batman, all my dreams are in your hands. And he tells her, like, he will be stopped, Doctor. He won't get anywhere near your ship. So again, he's like, obsessing over the fact that he was holding back and shit. So he's like, okay, you know what? It's time to even the odds. And it says he makes a phone call to Alfred, and then there's a package that comes to him, 2 hours later. And then it says he's ready. So we go back over to Spawn, who's still like throwing up from the nerve gas. And one of his homeless friends is telling him, like, yeah, that's right. Go ahead. Go through the motions. Like, that's the only way for it to stop. And he says, count your blessings, Al. The rest of us feel like that every day. So he's like, yeah, I guess you do. The creep who did this to me, Batman, if he's not an idiot, he learned his lesson. So he's like, Batman, right. You tell the best stories, Al. He's like, it's not just a story, it was Batman. And if he's working for Nadia Vladova, or Margaret Love, as she's calling herself, then he's not a hero everybody says he is. So it's, we see someone from the crowd in the back is like, kind of like Elseworlds, huh? And the other one's like, what are you talking about, Mick? So he goes from there to saying, like, Spawn's like, I'll do to him what I'll do to her. So anyway, he takes off, and then we see Batman shows up yet again. And so they start fighting, but this time Batman has the gloves or whatever. So it's saying the power of the gloves, it streams through Batman. He can laugh at wounds that just hours ago left him helpless. And most delightful of all, he faces an opponent who can take a world of punishment. No need for the usual restraint. So we get another, like, pretty good fight scene when they're just kind of like getting some captions in between through, just kind of like talking about like their struggle and shit, about how Al, you know, back when he was a soldier, back when he was alive, he didn't need magic, and now with little magic to spare, he fights the way he was trained to fight, dirty. So they get into it and shit, and then they kind of like get to a point where they kind of like knock each other, or they kind of like knock the wind out of each other, and they're both just kind of like spent a little bit. So Batman's over there telling him, like, Batman keeps like insulting him and saying like he's just a stupid punk, and he says, give it up, punk, you're finished, just look at you, you're finished. So he tells him, like, look at you can't even get up, you're the one who's finished. And then he tells him, like, I'll rip you to pieces, undisciplined slob. So Spawn tells him, catch my breath, just catch my breath, and I'll break you in half. So unfortunately, they don't really get the chance to do that, because then we get some more of the robots show up, and they immediately just go straight for Batman. And it says that they what? Batman's jaw shatters like glass. So I don't know if they just like pushed his face into the ground or if they grabbed him by the head. But yeah, they shattered his jaw, just picking him up. Then they throw him into the wall and shit, and then they start like just inflicting pain. And it says what? An artery bursts, a mortal wound, as Batman feels a final coldness fill him and hears the wet sounds of what they do to him. So Spawn is over there, he's like, killing him. Christ, they're killing him. And it says, Spawn reaches deep within himself to find the strength to stay conscious, to find the will to rise, and he reaches all the way to find the will, to hell to find the power. So he uses that to like destroy the robots and shit, to free Batman. And he's even telling Batman, like, I hope you appreciate this. Anyway, Batman tells him, like, magic tricks, no way to fight, no discipline, as he's laying there, like, literally broken and shit. And Spawn is like, you're not making sense, you're in shock, it looks really bad. So he's like over there thinking like, okay, he's got no blood left in him, like it's gonna be a miracle, it takes a miracle just to save this guy. So of course he uses his magic powers, And he like goes into Batman's head, and they're having a back and forth. And he's telling him like, I'm trying to save you, I'm trying to rescue you or whatever. And Batman just keeps telling him like, get out of my head, like I don't need your help and shit. And then he's saying like, not until we've had a little chat, swapped a few stories, traded a few pieces of each other. So that's where we kind of get like them sharing each other's stories and shit. And of course, Batman's like freaking out when he finds out like about what happened to his parents and everything. And so he starts like yelling at him, "Get out of my head!" He's like, "Not until you know. Look at her, Batman. Listen to the soldiers gibber or gibber like idiots and scream and die. That's Margaret Love and her damn mind experiments. She smiled, damn her. She smiled." So he's like filling him in on all of what happened, and then he finally like tells him, "Do you get it now?" And he's like, "Yes. I mean, I know you're a little thick, but do you understand what she is and what we have to do?" And Batman's like, "Yes. Now get out of my head, you twit." So he does that, and he's like, "Yeah, nothing I'd rather do. You ever thought about getting help?" And he's like, "If there's one thing I can't stand, it's a dead punk that won't show up. We've got work to do. Let's go." So I guess calling him a dead punk is fair after Spawn told him, "What? I was a soldier. I fought and I died. I wasn't some rich kid with a hang up about bats." So, fair is fair. And then I shared this out on Twitter because just look at this splash page of the two of them just kind of like swinging into action together. This is incredible. I wish we would get more shit like this in modern comics. But anyway, they go from there to where she's holding that like event or whatever on the ship, and so she's talking to all of the people who are assembled, and a lot of them are like politicians and like military officials and shit like that. And so she's saying like she realized that there's no real right way to try and help all of the suffering people in the world because there's just so much. She says for every mouth we fed, there were millions still hungry. For every mind we turned to love and joy, there were nations of slaves to bigotry and hatred. It all seemed pointless, impossible. Truly, how can anyone heal the world? She says, then one day, an epiphany, like a lightning bolt, it struck me. All the confusions and complications fell away. It's all so simple, so obvious. The problem is people. People. Sweating, farting, meat eating, land destroying, cruel, stupid, murderous people. People. Sprawling across the planet, cluttering its natural perfection with endless flesh, countless factories and diners and mini malls and toxic waste dumps and concentration camps. People. Committing endless horrors, ruining everything. The problem is people. Now we can agree on that. Now I think you were a little too harsh on some of those points, but we can absolutely agree people suck. But anyway, she says, we stand at the brink of a great destiny, my friends. We have a glorious opportunity to usher in a new world, a world free of pain and fear and war and crime and all the other evils of human willfulness. And all it will take is a war that will grow and grow until the fire is everywhere. Because basically she shows them that she has all of these like nuclear warheads and shit. And it even says in here, a hush falls over the crowd. Two generals trade high fives. So I thought that was a nice touch. Like you always see Frank throwing in shit like that in there, like very anti-war. Just like, yeah, these assholes, like they're generals because they want war. They want to be fighting. They want to send army men out to fight and shit. So anyway, she says, then when the fires have died, our historic work will truly begin. Using a trinity of methods, therapy, technology, and force, we will offer freedom from choice to every living soul. We will free the world. We will heal the world. So she's kind of like showing them all the missiles and shit. And then it says, jubilant applause. Arriving 20 minutes late, the President of the United States takes his first sip of punch. His friends begin to fill him in. So we go from there over to where Spawn and Batman are now like working together to go and try and take her down. And Spawn is like telling him, "Move it, Batman! You're taking too long with the guards." And he says, "What the devil are you doing back in my head?" He's like, "I thought we should coordinate our efforts, and this seemed like the best way. All right." So Batman tells him, like, "Just follow my lead, boy. I've been at this a few years longer than you have, and I'm a whole lot smarter than you. From all indications, you're dumber than Clark." So he's like, "Who's Clark?" He's like, "Don't worry about it, or none of your business." So they break in and everything, and then Spawn is saying like, "Yeah, we're in, but no thanks to you." And then Batman tells him, "You're a blunt instrument, kid, so go ahead, kick up all the noise you want. Though it's a wonder you can even move with all those stupid chains." And Spawn tells him, "That was a cheap shot, man." He's like, "You make noise, I'll do the real work." So he says, "Jesus, look at all this shit. It could level a continent because, they see all the bombs and shit." So he says, "This is a damn arsenal. There's even nukes. She's out to kill everybody." And then I guess he uses like his powers a little too much, and Batman is literally telling him, like, "Oh, way to go, expert," or whatever. What? Yeah, that was expert, boy. It says, "You were a soldier. You should have known that explosives tend to blow up if you're not careful with them." So we see all of these explosions start going off and shit. And then Batman is trying to tell him, like, "No, you fool, she doesn't have to die." And Spawn is saying, like, "Why not?" So we can see where she gets like, we don't actually see it happen. Like we see it coming at her, and then all of a sudden she's just like impaled in silhouette. And it says like, Batman has no answer. He moves toward the dying woman, hearing her last pathetic gasps, not realizing until it is far too late that she has one last option left to her, this mad woman. One last weapon, an old weapon, a final weapon. So apparently she had just a button to one nuke tied to her neck and shit, on her necklace or whatever the hell. And then she fires that off. So they're trying to figure out what to do about it. And Spawn is like, "All right, bailing you out, and I've got to put up with this abuse. Hold on to your guts, Bat Boy. This is going to suck." So it says that he like teleports them or whatever, and it says that they're ripped to atoms, shredded, rebuilt, and regurgitated from the ether to the side of a speeding Soviet missile that promises the death of all New York's millions. And then it says, Batman's hands stop shaking. They have to. His mind clears. It has to. So he's saying like it's a mess, redundant circuitry. And Spawn says, "Watch it. I know this model. That's not a redundancy. It's a trick. Touch it wrong and everybody dies." So of course Batman has to tell him like, "I won't touch it wrong. And don't you touch my cape. Ever. Nobody touches my cape." So he goes to work on the bomb and everything. And then he says, "That's it. It's dead. Get us out of here." And he's like, "Al, get us out of here." So the missile crashes into the water harmlessly and everything. And then he teleports them back into an alley Spawn calls home that very instant. So it says, "Another round of agony and nausea." And then Batman tells him, "Your methods are revolting. Your disrespect for human life is detestable. Your lack of discipline is nothing short of embarrassing. We'll meet again." And Spawn tells him, "You'd better hope we don't. I could have you for breakfast. And if you step on my turf again, I will." So Batman's like, "I don't have the power in hand to bring you down right now, boy. But I'll get it. And we'll meet again." So Spawn has to tell him, like, "Would you just knock it off for just 1 second? You and me, we just saved the whole city, maybe the whole world. When the chips were down, we wound up on the same team, and neither of us could have pulled this off alone. What do you say we just bury the hatchet?" To which Batman's like, "Bury this," and then he throws a battering into his face. And that's actually literally where it leaves off. Where he's like, "No, we're not friends, we're not working together, you stay out of my way and let me handle all of the problem." And if you don't believe me, here's a battering to the face. So, perfect way for it to end. Like I said, that's Frank Miller's Batman. Like, it's very much on brand with the way that he writes him. He's a little bit, I don't want to say he's an ass, but he's kind of a little bit of an ass. But only because, yeah, he's that tough street brawler. Because Frank Miller's Batman is very grounded in reality in that he fights like low-life scum on the regular. So, I mean, have you ever seen the way that just regular criminals talk to cops? Can you imagine the way that actual professional criminals would talk to Batman? So it kind of makes sense that he would constantly be talking shit to everyone who's trying to fight with him, right? At least it makes sense in my mind. But yeah, that's what I got from this. I don't know if anybody out there has had the chance to read this. If you happen to have this in your collection, I'm pretty sure you can find this online to read it. I'm sure it exists in multiple places online. So if you're able to read it, definitely go check it out. It's a really good book. I'm not going to lie to you about that. So yeah, if you have read this though, feel free to let me know what you thought about it because I love it. Spawn and Batman, two of my absolute favorite characters of all time. And then you have Todd on art, Frank writing back before, he went way off the deep end. This was him still kind of like in form. He was kind of starting to slide a little bit here, but he was still very much in rare form. But Yeah, just, if you've read this, like I said, let me know what you've thought about it. And yeah, I think that's going to do it for me here. So if you enjoyed this video, definitely like this video. I'll try to do some more like older comic book reviews and just like random stuff that isn't just, random or like current stuff that's coming out from the more notable publishers or whatever. I'll try to do more of that. So if you enjoy this type of stuff, definitely like the video and make sure you're subscribed so that way you can come back for more content just like that. But if you guys are done here, then go read a book, especially that one if you're able to find it. And if not, then I will see you on my next video.